Another breaking news story was actually one of our top stories today was the clashes in Sondu. In this day and age, come on, man, it's 60 years after independence, there's still tribal, ethnic clashes in Kenya. This is on the Kericho-Kisumu border.
Yes. It is very unfortunate because I thought after 2007, we have seen it all. And this is something that we have promised ourselves. In 2013, when we came and, the first government that came into being decided to put this behind the scenes so that, put it off completely. And successively, we thought, this thing is dying out. So at this point in time, we will not expect any tribal animosities because it is not warranted. And I've not gotten the basics. Why are they fighting? Yeah. Is it over land? Is it over cattle rustling? What is it? Is it political? And I think we should have moved away from all these things that we see today and begin to build a cohesive Kenya where everybody feel welcome wherever they are. And I think that's what we need to preach.
Yeah. Sheikh, these borders were pre-assigned by the colonial government.
Yes.
And again, I keep saying 60 years after independence, isn't our fault? Have we let our people down in that those borders, people still think that they are borders, that they are dividing lines?
I think we need to educate our people that these ones are just for administrative purposes. We are the same people, same country. And Jeff, I keep on telling people, we should understand that it is in God's plan that as Kenyans, we are people of different ethnicities, different tribes, different religious communities. And I think we should learn to coexist peacefully. But for me, Jeff, more important than that is when there is a problem like that, I think it is important for us to sit down and not just do whitewashing, cosmetic solutions to problems. What are the underlying root causes of such problems? Because I think this is the problem that we have. You just come, deal with the symptoms and leave it. Yet there could be things that are just, waiting to erupt. So for me, the advice to government here, and the government of the day, is duty-bound to protect people and their lives. I think they need to go deep into the root causes, even as they look for the perpetrators of this thing, because I think this is the tip of the iceberg. If it is politically motivated, let's deal with it. If it is because of resources, because these are some of the problems, people are fighting because of the resources, the government has to address that. So can you go and look at the underlying root causes of these clashes?
And Bishop, why can't we solve this? I mean, every time we keep having talks, and we never have a solution.
The issue that seems to be at hand is that being a member of one tribe, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the people who live along the Sondu-Kericho border, they intermarry. But 2 months ago, when there were demonstrations here, again, we had the same thing. Yeah. And some people, again, I think a couple of people were shot with arrows. But they were being armed by politicians. Okay. So I think there are several dimensions. The first dimension is the resource dimension, where land issue or animal issue. The second dimension is the dimension of politics, that sometimes politicians would stir up animosity among their people in order to either move or relocate certain group of people. Now, we need to point it out that actually, from my perspective as a religious leader, ethnocentrism is sin. And we need to call it what it is. It is actually sin, and people who are still engaged in that in this age and generation are actually promoting something that's going to hurt generations to come. Yeah. The fact that one generation hands it over to another generation, that's the reason it has lasted for 60 years. If we had a different group of leaders who says, with our generation, we are bringing this to a stop, but because they benefit from it, when political time comes, when voting time comes, they want to perpetuate that system because they're benefiting from it. I think we need a different crop of leaders who would say, everyone living in my vicinity is my person. and I need to treat them as such. That would be very, very important for us to be able to handle this. As it is right now, it seems it's being perpetuated from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And right, Reverend, are we mature enough for this? Because the biggest fear is retaliatory attacks. You know?
Yeah. Indeed, it's quite sad that at this day and age, we have such clashes, we have such confrontations, and it's like it is happening every year. Because when it is not along this border, it's along another one. And it's like all over the country. Yet we have commissions that have been put in place to try and build national cohesion. We have even committees or the commissions that did probes as to why do Kenyans fight? What do they fight for? Is it politics? Is it social? Is it economic? And we have so many reports. Why can't we benefit from these reports? Look at them and ask ourselves, what is the root cause of these challenges that keep on cropping up every now and then? Where we see in other nations, people are trying to come together to build bigger entities so that they can do trade and other things together. As for us, it's like we are trying to dismember what we already have by going into cocoons, tribal, ethnic, that add no value at all. And even if it's cattle rustling, how much value are the animals you steal from other people, kill them for the sake of those animals? Even if it is pastures, how long can you keep us on pursuing those pastures? So I guess we need to become serious, because other nations could not be, they are trading in stocks, where we are cattle rustling. We should become a serious nation, people who realize that they are one, and when people look at us out there and they see the kind of things we are engaged in, we become a laughing stock. The nations out there, they look at us and wonder now, these people are still in Stone Age. They are fighting over pastures. They are fighting over animals. They are fighting over women. They are fighting over men. These things do not create a good image for us out there. So these are the things we need to overcome.
Absolutely. Point well made. Bishop, let me ask you this. Archbishop Anyolo of Nairobi, earlier on today, told the National Dialogue Committee to think Kenya-centric when they're going forward with their talks and not about politics. Is that even feasible when politics seems to be our religion here?
Yes, it should be. The only thing is that the process itself is a political process. It has come into being by politicians trying to find some kind of agreement. And as a result of that, most likely by the end of that process, politicians will be getting slots or assigned responsibility, or some getting positions, or their people getting positions. So because of that, it tends to be fairly politically aligned. And I think what the Archbishop was saying is a good statement to make, so that the politicians should not just think about political benefits. They also need to think, where are our people? And that's a very, very important matter at this particular point, because people are struggling, people are suffering, and there are, the economy is bad, people can hardly make ends meet, heavy taxations. So as a result of this, I do think that what the Archbishop was saying, let's take time as we dialogue together. Let's not just dialogue for the group of us who are fighting or demonstrating. Let's think of the whole country, not just a group of us. How will the country benefit from this dialogue? Are we changing the constitution? Are we introducing new regulations? Are we going back to the cause of electoral violence that we keep having every election year? I think if they go that direction, we would say that was a worthy course they have taken.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sheikh, what happened to the time when people thought Kenya first, everything else second?
It is very unfortunate, Jeff, that we long for that time. And I think all is not lost. And I think I want to join hands with the bishop and what he said. He said what every religious leader in this country should do. But is it enough for the religious leaders to come out and call people to think as Kenyans, as a one people? I think each one of us has a role to play. The politicians have a role to play. Unfortunately, Jeff, you just need to tell me your second name. I don't mean you, just an example in Kenya, and I'll tell you the political party you belong to. I just need to listen to the ringtone of your phone, and I can tell the political party you belong to. You tell me which part of the mountain, side of the mountain or the lake you come from, or the Rift Valley, the valley, then this is very unfortunate. So we are not only dealing with negative ethnicity, because ethnicity, I never applied myself to be a Maasai. You didn't apply to be born where you were born. It is God's plan. And I call it God's divine plan. And we're supposed to live together. I think we should keep on talking about it. We should put it in the heads of our political leadership, because they don't elect themselves. I think we need to tell our politicians, Jeff, look here, if you want to ride on an ethnic card to get into power, we are not giving you that. Again, our political parties, I think we need to move away from having parties that can, the moment you see that party, you associate it with a certain ethnic community. I think this is where we're going wrong. But all is not lost. I think as religious leaders, that the Archbishop did what he's supposed to do. All of us are supposed to do that. Yes, it is feasible, but when each one of us, as Kenyans, because we are all stakeholders, Jeff, all of us need to play our rightful part, call for being Kenya. Did you call it Kenya-centric?
Kenya-centric.
Instead of thinking about ourselves as tribes and ethnicities and the rest. Yeah.
Archbishop, do you agree?
Yes, I do agree, but the problem is that we have been mobilizing ourselves as a country politically along tribal lines, along blocs, and even the coalitions that are being formed are coalitions of regions that are supported by this bloc and that bloc coming together. So the problem has been, you know, if you speak, which bloc do you come from? And who do you speak for? And I want to agree with Archbishop Anyolo, and I did even mention myself last week when we had the Provincial Synod of the Anglican Church, that, you know, we need to move from looking at Kenya as different regions and blocks, which, you know, politicians have even come out and say, you know, this time round, it is us and not them. Yeah. So whenever that arises, that it is us and not them, and development will be skewed in such a way that it is us and the rest will come after, you know, that sent a very wrong message and picture to the rest of the country, because we all are equal, whether we voted this way or that way. When a system is put in place, say a government is put in place, it becomes a government for all, for those who voted in and those who did not vote. And development should, you know, cut across, because we all are taxpayers. So the moment we mobilize ourselves along blocks of tribes or regions, and then we want to protect that, and politicians want to protect that, and every other bloc want to protect, whether they're in the position or in government, they want to protect their regions. That's why now we begin to see the arrangement that, you know, these people don't belong here, we belong here. The issue of entitlement comes. And that's why we are dealing with these border things, that we are entitled because we are the original owners of this section and not them. So we fight. And if we are able to address that as a country, that we follow political parties because of persuasion, because of our philosophy, because of an ideology, not because the one at the top belongs to us, and I'm convinced by a philosophy and an ideology to follow a party, then that party then works for everybody, then we will be able to address the tribal tensions that there are. But so long as, you know, we also benefit as politicians, particularly politicians benefit from support because of a bloc and balkanization of a country, then we will see more of these tensions, because then the tensions will always be created by the politicians that, you know, you don't belong here, you have to go from this place, you can't vote here, you can't benefit from here, go and benefit from your own section. And that should not be the Kenya we are imagining today. Yeah. The Kenya we are imagining today must be a Kenya for all. That wherever I live, whatever I do, business and everything else, I belong to that place that I am settled. And if we believe all in that philosophy that every Kenyan is free to settle anywhere in this country, then we should then allow every Kenyan to settle and do business in every part of the country.
Sure. Right, Reverend, let me ask you this. I mean, if one half of the Dialogue Party National Dialogue Committee cannot even agree who won the last elections. I mean, where are we going to go? Where do we start?
Well, it's worrying because our division then starts from the top. Because if the people in that committee are the people representing us as Kenyans at that level, and then they start disagreeing in front of cameras, then they are sending a very long message and a very, worrying message to all people there that we are divided. No matter the fact you have seen us together at a dialogue table does not mean that we are united in any way. And therefore, this message, when it is cascaded to all of us, it makes us a people who are not building nationhood. And that is what we should be at all levels, particularly when we come before public, when we are before cameras. That's something we should strive to communicate to our people. Because, our children, our youth are watching and wondering now. These are the leaders who we are looking up to, and they are telling us that we are different. Then we can take up. They say, man can see, man can do. The people out there will see, okay, there's no point of a united Kenya. And somebody said that we have very few Kenyans in Kenya. Very few Kenyans in Kenya. Much as we call ourselves Kenyans, we use one currency, we use the same plate numbers, we use things that look like Yawan, we sing one national anthem. But when it comes to thinking, when it comes to our world view, we look at everything from our tribal prisms. I look at where I come from and the benefits that I'll get, what I can extract from government. And I think it's the whole idea of, the national cake. We never talk about baking it. We talk about sharing it. Because we need to have a very serious dialogue about the cake that is going to be shared. We first talk about baking it, cooking it and preparing it, and then we can share it after that. So I think those people in leadership, you and me, need to look at things from a point where we are sending a message to the people out there that if you look up to me, you will not see a shred of tribalism, a shred of ethnicity in me. But the moment I take the mic and speak for my tribe and demonize and bastardize the other side, I'm telling my people this is the way to go. And people look up to their leaders. When it comes to making decisions, they look up their leaders and say, our leaders have taken a certain route. That is the way to go. So it's quite unfortunate that at the dialogue table in Bomas, we could see those divisions very clearly. We hope that when people are given such a forum, they will cultivate a national forum and at least show an image that will make people out there realize it is you who is divided down there. Up there, we are one and the same. Yeah. Otherwise, when we put it on, they are out there and everybody sees it, it exploits what we intended to do finally.
Absolutely. Monkey see, monkey do. That's absolutely what happens. And the children are watching. Gentlemen, I want to take a quick break, come back and read some more news, and then come back and continue our discussion. IEBC still hasn't been constituted.
Indeed.
What if something drastic happened today?
Yes.
Imagine.
Thank
you.
Constitutional
Complete crisis. And also the cost of living, gentlemen. People suffering.
Going through the roof.
To no end. Let's talk about that when we come back. I've got Right Reverend Thego Mutai. He's the moderator at the PCEA. I've got Callisto Odede, Bishop Callisto Odede. He's the presiding bishop at CTAM. I've got Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. He's a Muslim scholar. And right next to me, Archbishop Reverend Jackson Ole Sapit of the ACK. Wow, I got that right, imagine. I'm impressed with myself. JKLIVE, take a break. Keep tweeting at Kwenanga Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya, the hashtag JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back. Stay with us in a moment.